Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's episode of Hey Sister. Hey Sister, how you doing?
I'm doing well, sister. Thank you very much for asking. And of course, I'm so excited to have Ms. Soon to be Dr. Angela Kirkman Bōdy here with us today so we can really get into how people are doing.
Yes. Angie, first we got to start up at the top of the show and just say, Happy
Happy
birthday to you.
Oh,
Happy
blessings. Thank
birthday
you.
to you. Happy birthday. Now, I can't sing, but hopefully that helped a little
Oh
bit.
my God. Thank you so much. That was amazing. That was amazing.
Well, we got to definitely say happy birthday, acknowledge your birthday, because we have to find moments of joy and find moments to celebrate, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
what did you do fun for yourself today on this birthday?
On the birthday weekend, I'll say Friday, I started by going to Disneyland, the happiest place on earth. And then yesterday, I had a couple of family members and Soros come over and we had cupcakes and wine.
Oh,
Oh,
nice.
yummy, yummy, yummy.
Yeah. So we had a good time. That was a good relief on yesterday.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, I'm glad you were able to have that relief and we're just so happy that you took time to be with us today on Hey Sister, to share with your expertise and to
Mhm.
give us your so much of your knowledge. So we had you on before and was so well received, and so we said we wanted to definitely have you on again. So make sure that if you are out there that you like, follow, share, tell your folks to come on in the room. If you're out there watching, go on and just let us know that you're here in the comments and that you're watching. Um, because we got a really important conversation tonight, and really using Angela's expertise to kind of guide us through some of the challenges that we're facing out there today. So, and be sure to join the conversation in the comments. That's where the action is, that's where everything goes down. So, be sure to join us in the comments tonight. But we start every Hey Sister off with hot topics. And tonight we're just going to talk about one hot topic because we think it has hit all of us in a very significant and different way, and it ties into the conversation that we want to have this evening. And so we want to say rest in power to the phenomenal actor, artist, one Mr. Michael K. Williams. Last week when we were on, we came back to Hey Sister after our summer hiatus. We hadn't heard the news at that point, and so the next day, is when he was found, and he had passed away. And I don't know. I'll throw it to you, sister, first. Tell me what your thoughts or your memories of this phenomenal actor.
Well, um, so part of the reason I wanted to have Angie on the show was because she had done such a wonderful job the last time and really connected with people. But I found myself like really in a bad place, and it's like I don't obviously did not know Michael K. Williams outside of the work that he did as a thespian. But it's like when you see somebody who who is a light. And I always feel like when I've seen him, of course, most of us were first introduced to him as Omar Little in The Wire. And but then, of course, one of his more recent roles was as Montrose Freeman in Lovecraft Country. And so, I got on Lovecraft Country a little later, but definitely became a huge fan, was really sad when it wasn't renewed. And then now it kind of is, it's this weird poetic kind of thing now that it wasn't renewed, because I'm like, yeah, how could it go on without Montrose, without Michael K. Williams? And it's one of those things where not knowing what people are dealing with, it's, I always wonder, did they know how much they were loved? Did they know how beautiful they were? We know about the prominent scar that he had, that was as a result of, from what I understand, a bar fight, and was part of that addiction that he dealt with and struggled with for so long. But despite that, it was like you could tell he was just a beautiful human outside physically beautiful, but just you could just see like he exuded light from the inside out. And so even when he played these terribly crazy, scary characters, then you would see him in an interview and be like, oh my gosh, he seems like such a gentle, loving, wonderful person. So it struck me hard, because again, it's always that feeling like when you see so many people were impacted, like so many actors and artists were impacted, and it made me question to myself, like, I wonder if he knew. And that's why I thought it was important to have Angie on today, because I don't want people leaving here not knowing. Okay, we can't hear you, sister. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
I'm sorry about that. Angie, what about for you when you heard of his transition? Oh,
now I can't hear you, Angie.
you're unmute. You're muted somehow.
Are your earbuds still in?
There we go. I'm good. Okay. The same feelings. Just devastated. He's someone that touched my soul through the airways. So it was the same feeling as Christina, just wondering if he understood how much he was loved, if he understood how much people cared about him and acknowledged him and honored him for just who he was, not just as an actor, as a person. You know, when you hear people, when they pass away and everybody speaks about you and they speak about you in such loving ways, it feels like I was shorted, because I wanted to meet him and I wanted to see him and I wanted to be around that same energy, and I would never have that chance. But yeah, that's a common theme, and that's just connection of souls, I really think, more than anything.
Yeah, well, I do believe that energy is eternal. As we know, it cannot be created or destroyed. And the fact that we had the opportunity to be on this earth while he was here, we have an opportunity to experience that energy, because that energy has been released from the physical body and is now it is among us. So and his work will go on, because it was just very powerful. So rest in power to Michael K. Williams, to his family, who are now in the mourning and the grief process, all the people who loved him and who were touched by his light. You know, we just pray that everybody can be lifted up in this time. So,
Yes.
but, you know, we want to get to you a little bit, Angie, and tell us a little bit about what's been going on at the Hope and Wellness Partnership. So Christina mentioned that you are soon to be Dr. Angela Bōdy. So we know you're hard at work there, but also with, you know, what's been going on and you know, with your practice and then how things are going with you.
Yeah, thank you for even considering thinking about that. As a clinician, it's been pretty rough. We handle a number of things, and I mean I speak for our whole entire group mostly, because we are all booked. The clinicians are all booked. We are overwhelmed and we are tired because people are really struggling with COVID, isolation, financial struggles, emotional struggles, mental health issues that they may have not taken care of in the past are coming to light now. So it's really been challenging for us all. I am thankful that I'm in the position and I'm able to give back. I really know that it's a true gift, because it cannot be me. It cannot be me. I do not have that much energy in me to do what I do, but I know it's a true gift. So I'm thankful for that. So just, you know, if you meet a clinician, either psychologist, psychiatrist, LCSW, MPC, whatever, just say a little prayer for them and know that we are working hard to support people that are in need, and it can be challenging for us as well. Mm-hmm. As it relates to my doctorate, that's a scary thing. It starts in 2 weeks. I'll be on the road to be have my DSW, and I'm really nervous about it, but I'm ready to get it going and get it over with. Mm-hmm. So just pray for me also in that pursuit of that. But I'm doing that not just for myself, I'm doing it for my community, and I'm doing it for my family. my grandmother, as it relates, she was not allowed to go to school. My grandfather was not allowed to go to school. My parents, or specifically my father, was not allowed. He could go to school, but he had to mostly work in the fields. So when I think of that, I could not, pass this opportunity to attend school with 75% paid for by my job. So I am pursuing that with an open heart.
Yes, fantastic. Well, we're behind you, cheering you on, and lifting you up all the way.
Thank you.
Well, we wanted to talk. We have we bucketed it up into 3 different pockets here. And so the first thing, and it's actually from my favorite artist who passed away some years ago now, but obviously medicating and medication being laced with fentanyl. We had a story recently where we have 3 comedians who passed away. They were all out after a show partying, and they were I guess socially doing cocaine that was laced with fentanyl, and passed away. And so, but Prince had this line about, we got to getting through this thing called life. So we wanted to talk a little bit today about getting through this thing called life. You said it. It's been rough. Like COVID is persisted and is persisting. People are what I describe as, I'm seeing so much id behavior. So, the ego and the id, I'm just seeing all of this behavior that I'm like, okay, you're not even using any of your prefrontal cortex or your brain. Like, this is all like infantile behavior. We're seeing just so much happening out there. How are you counseling people to get through this thing called life?
Well, I took a breath there. That's one of the things that I do. But you'll see a number of things. So I have patients with anxiety. I have a patient that had COVID and is afraid to go out into the community because they think that everybody else has COVID. We have people that are angry about having to wear masks. So with that being said, I take it as an individual basis. With the COVID issue, with the anxiety issue, a lot of people had anxiety prior to COVID. I'll just say that. And COVID just put you in a situation where you could not help but attend to that, right? So when I say anxiety, I mean pure nervousness, not just, we get nerves like now. I'm like, oh, I got to go do something. I'm nervous about it. Okay, that'll go away. This is someone that always has a bear on their back, or they always see the dog coming to them, attacking them. They're just jittery. Their stomach is upset. They have these headaches. They can't sleep. They're either eating too much or eating too little. They have what you said, they're using id behavior. They're going to their defense mechanisms. They're doing childlike things. They're not responding correctly. So you see all this. So you start with that person. Where do they want? What do they see that's wrong? When they come to me, they have to see a difference. They have to want to make a difference. So when they're coming to me, I'm asking them, what do they want to work on first? And then I help them and I guide them through that insight. I cannot tell them the right or wrong of things. All I can do is educate them about their behavior. And then we talk about coping tools. We try a number of coping tools. The usual is journaling. The usual is exercising, eating well, eating healthy, making sure we're not putting processed food in our body, eating a lot of sugar, getting to those blueberries, so it's antioxidants. Those are the great things to put into your body at this time. Also getting out with friends. Granted, people are nervous about that, right? So this is a new way to communicate. How can you communicate without being one-on-one with a person? It might be via Zoom. Will that be good enough for you? Will it be, okay, you go to the park, you sit on one side of the park and the other person sit on one other side of the park, and you just have that connection. But there's so many ways to kind of cope with this anxiety, but you have to be open and ready for it. So that's the first step, getting to what that person wants to do, what they want to work on.
Okay. And then, so if that's the first step, then what's the second step?
Well, that's
we got it one step at a time.
Okay, step 2. No. Okay, so say they practice these tools and they come to me, you know what? There's no difference. Okay, there's no difference. I'm not feeling any difference. And now coupled with that, I'm getting depressed. I'm sad because my whole life has changed, right? We're dealing with this thing called life. We're dealing with uncertainty. People cannot deal with uncertainty. They think, and that they could be 30-year-olds and up. I'll just say the 30-year-olds really, they have to have that map in their life, right? They have to know what is going to be the next step. Like you just said, number 2, what are we going to do? I don't know what we're going to do. You tell me what you're going to do. Let's try this. Let's try this in this setting. So if you're having a person that does not want to expose themselves, does not want to go to the grocery store, okay, guess what we're going to do? I'm going to have you drive to the grocery store. You're going to sit in the car and you're going to tell me how you feel when you drive to the grocery store. Okay, you did that. Great. Step 2, the next day, next week, you're going to go to the grocery store, drive. You're going to walk up to the door. You're going to stop. Tell me how you feel. What are you thinking? What are those thoughts? Because we all have those cognitive distortions, but in anxiety, they're multiplied. They're all over the place, all right? So what are you thinking? What are you feeling in your body? We don't often notice our feelings, right? Our shoulders are tense. You know, our head is bothering us. We may have a little stomach ache and we're like, oh, it's just something we shouldn't worry about. But we need to write those down, okay? Once they're able to do that, stop, go to the store, stand at the door. Okay, it's time to go in and see what happens. If you can't go all the way in, don't do it. Come back, reevaluate, and we talk about it again, and then we work on it. So it's a continuous process, just like life. Life is a continuous process. We don't know what's going to come at us, right? I came from I'm sharing. I came from my daughter's wedding. She got married on August, she's going to kill me, but the 5th, I think. She got married. We had a great time. My family was there. Amazing time in Dallas. Came back. My uncle died a week later. So we went through emotions. We were up and down, up and down. And it was like, are you serious? That's how you're going to do me life? I had to ask that question. Is that how you're going to do me? And it was like, yes, because life is uncertain. So we need to gain those coping skills to get through life. And the coping skills could be whatever we talk about, whatever you formulate. That's what we work on. Now, and remember, I'm not talking about pervasive illnesses like psychosis or borderline. We're just talking about anxiety, depression, health anxiety, things like that.
Okay. Christina, I'm going to toss it to you to ask a question. Now you're on mute, so just make sure you know it comes.
Yes, I know. I just wanted to make sure I didn't have any background noises or anything. So I had 2 questions, but my first question is going to be, how does somebody find someone like you? So in other words, you're in a set geography, you know, even if you do this sort of telemedicine, sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Even if you do telemedicine, there's only so many hours in the day. And, you know, like I'll give you an example. I talked to my other friend and I'm like, yeah, you know, this therapist, because I do see a therapist. And I'm like, I have, you know, I don't know if I want to stick with her. Should I go somewhere else? Blah, blah, blah. And my friend who is a therapist is like, well, what is her therapy style? I don't know her therapy style.
There you go.
But,
there you go.
But how do we even evaluate? I mean, other than the courtship of, because it felt right in the beginning.
It is. Absolutely. So, you know, by asking. And I wrote a short little article on that. I will share that with you at another time. But just quickly, when you call and ask for a therapist, you want to make sure you click. So I asked for a Zoom call. So I give 15 minutes, a free 15-minute consultation. I need to see that person because I don't take anyone with pervasive illness in my office or via Zoom. I just don't. That's not my specialty. It takes a lot of work and some safety concerns. But I asked for an interview, if you will, via Zoom. And I asked those questions, you know, what type of theory, what's your theory based, or what type of clinical, what was your word? I'm sorry. What style do you use?
Yeah, therapy style.
Cognitive behavioral therapy. Okay, what does that mean? Or if they say eclectic approach, well, what does that mean? I don't know. You know, you have to ask them those certain questions and they should feel free. Another question you should ask, number one, besides their rate, how many minutes are we going to be in therapy? You know, how long do you think therapy will last? Sometimes they'll say like I would, you know, I really can't say right now, but maybe like 3 to 5 months, depending on, unless you pop in another issue. We have treatment plans. Just like in school, you know how you have to have your syllabus and you write stuff down and you plan out everything. That's what we do. And we do that in collaboration with you. So you work on the treatment plan. You want to ask them, have they had experience with this particular issue? What's your experience like? Do you have any problems? If you're seeing someone that's not within your culture base, you want to ask them, you know, if I have certain cultural issues, are you cool with that? Are you okay with that? You know, if we're going to meet via Zoom, you know, do I need to be in a safe place? They need to explain all that to you. It's a lot of questions that you need to know off the bat, but you can really connect with someone by the first meeting. You know, 15 minutes, that next meeting when you have that first session with them, if you guys don't connect, you don't have to stay with that therapist. You can see something else.
So like you use like the syllabus, the course syllabus as an example. So if it's a one-on-one class, like should I have I hit a wall maybe, and like we've just gotten to the end of our relationship and it's time to move to a new relationship? Is that a thing, or am I just making up stuff?
No, you hit a wall because you're healing and you're using the tools that you've discussed in session. So the treatment plan will tell us that. So maybe you're supposed to do it every month. I don't always do it, but maybe every 6 weeks, I'll send out another screener assessment, see where you're at. And then I'll say, do you think you're making progress towards your goals? And if so, how much progress? What else do you want to work on? Because sometimes people come to you, they'll say they want one thing, and then they'll give you 5 things. Mm-hmm. And we can't do that. No one will do that. Now, if you have a therapist that's doing that, that's not correct. You have to do one thing at a time and really work on that skill set. When you know you're getting better, they come to you and they do that, that they kind of prep you for the ending, like, oh man, Christine, I see you're doing really good. You know, I think we may have only a few sessions coming up. What do you think? And then you give them their feedback, and there may be some anxiety about it because you're like, wait, I need you, Angie. I've had you. No. You don't need Angie. We've worked out everything you gave me. You came up with that, because I always put on the clients, I may give you the education, but you've done the work outside of session, right? Because it's not about what we do in here. It's about what we do outside of the session. That's where you really shine. That's where you see your growth. Because look, you've been here all these years. You've lived your life and you've been through so many things. You just forgot about all your good coping skills. And I'm just here to remind you. Mm-hmm. One thing I want to jump in, the best resource, if you want a clinician of color, is Therapy for Black Girls. Mm-hmm. They're good. And there's also a millennial therapy collective that you can look at. And I can give you those links later as well. Mm-hmm. And Psychology Today. You can filter in what you want, what kind of payment, insurance, and everything. Yes. Make sure your therapist is licensed. I'm just telling you. And make sure they're not just saying they're a therapist, because there's a lot of people saying they're therapists and they're not.
Okay. And I think my second question, because that was kind of like 1 and 1A. My second question is, so, this word depression, and I think I might have asked this before, but particularly now, I've been having some conversations lately, and I know for myself, I've been able to say I've not been clinically diagnosed as depressed, and I definitely don't take any medication, but I definitely feel like I have been depressed in this time period. And I'm guessing that a lot of us have been. So I don't know if I'm gonna word this right, but about how many of us are actually depressed, and maybe we don't even know it.
That's a good one. Because we were speaking as African Americans, we just go through our life thinking we're okay because we've been told we're okay. We've been told that we're tough and we're able to handle any situation, but that's absolutely not true. Most of us are clinically depressed. Most of us just have general low mood, or we're just having a bad day. But just to give you some of the information for clinical depression, it's over a 2-week time period. So over a 2-week time period, if you're having trouble sleeping, so they call it hypersomnia, where you're sleeping too much, or insomnia, where you're not able to sleep. If you have poor appetite or you're overeating, so you see how this either or side of it goes. If you have just the general sadness, you're not able to get out of bed. You have thoughts of wanting to harm yourself. You have thoughts of not wanting to be here. if you are not able to function at work, you're having a difficult time at work. For men, you'll see anger. You'll see a lot of, switching moods, and, they're just so tense and they're angry and not able to express themselves. That may be a form of depression. Okay. I think generally we all are just saddened, and we're just, we're having a hard time with life. I don't think we're all clinically depressed, but I think we do have a majority of us that have been depressed for a while and are not open to therapy or are not open to being evaluated. If that answers your question, kind of.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, I have dropped several things in the comments. So I want everybody out there, if you are watching, please join the conversation in the comments. This is where you ask questions while we have Angie on with us, so that we can get the answers that we need, the support that we need individually. I also dropped several things in the comments. So the first thing that I dropped was an article that you definitely should read. It's from the oh my gosh, I just lost it. Kaiser Family Foundation, yes, about the impact of COVID on mental health and substance abuse. So if we've seen an increase in mental health challenges in substance abuse, it is very real and it is not imagined. So, so we definitely take a look at that. I also dropped in Psychology Today and Therapy for Black Girls, links to both of those, so that you can go and find a therapist on your own. You can qualify. Both of those are they have searching tools.
Yes.
So you look for people in your specific area. And as Angie said, you can put your little qualification. You can filter it, just like you go to Amazon and you filter for Prime now. You can do so. You can filter on some of the things that you're looking for. And then we talked about some of those signs of, am I depressed? And like she said, if it persists for over a 2-week period, so where it is persistent, recognize the signs. So I'll just share, I typed I did a post last week because I've kind of been in my own little kind of like mental, emotional, and funk, stump, whatever you want to call it. But really it's just because I think it was like a lot of mental and emotional exhaustion. Just thinking of, getting my son off to college, getting my then them having to evacuate with the hurricane, and then with our parents, and then not knowing, and then having them come here. It's just been a lot the last 4 weeks. And I have asked myself these questions, like, checking in with yourself. And I think that's just so very important. We don't check in with ourselves enough. And a lot of times we put on the I'm fine. And as my husband reminded me from what one of his friends shared, that's feelings inside not expressed. That's what fine means. Feelings inside not expressed. So if you saying you fine, that means you got some feelings that you're not expressing.
I love that. I love it.
So I had to do my own. I had to check in with myself and say, oh wow, I'm not in a good place. I knew it, and I said to people, I'm not in a good place right now. My creativity is gone. My spark is gone. I don't have it right now. It's gonna come back, but I know that I'm just mentally exhausted. I'm just mentally and emotionally exhausted. And so then I had my boo boo boo, wake up girl moment. But yeah, it's been tough out here. And so just acknowledging that is so very important, isn't it? Like acknowledgement.
Yes. And I think just expressing that to our kids to kind of change the pattern. And I don't know how you guys were brought up, but in my family, it was we okay. Don't, The Kirkwood's okay. Nothing wrong with us. We good.
And I'm fine. Everybody was fine. Oh,
everybody fine. At the funeral, everybody was fine. I'm like, what? So I'm the only one? I'm the only one. So just acknowledging that and modeling that for your kids, it's important to share your feelings, to say, you know what, I'm not doing okay. Doesn't mean that you have any mental illness. It means that we have emotions. That's how God made us. We have a range of emotions. I have a chart at work that has a range of emotions because we're so short with how to describe ourselves. I have to pull out the chart and even help myself. So, it's important. I like that you're doing that. And let me just add, I talked about depression. I talked about sadness. I talked about suicide. I talked about the sleeping, the eating. Also, you'll see this is when I have low mood. I start shopping. I just zone all the way out, and I'm a shopper. And everybody know I don't have any problem. I'm like, okay, I'm doing too much. That's when I know I'm like, okay, because I'm zoning out and I'm just trying to find something. I need this. I need something. Some people, sex. They'll just have sex, and you're like, oh, they're being permissive. No, they're depressed, honey. Sex constantly. So it's not just the alcohol, it's not just the drugs, it's the sex, it's the being aggressive with people, it's the shopping, it's eating too much, it's some people go to school a lot, believe it or not, that pursuit of education, just to numb themselves. It's so many factors. So our textbooks gives us, certain criteria, but just working with people, you see different things. And it's amazing how the human mind works. So just to take account of that. And when someone says they're depressed, stop and really talk to them. Because especially if we say we're depressed, that means something is going on. Mm-hmm. And we really need to tap into that.
Absolutely. Well, I know the other side of topics that, our other bucket we wanted to talk to was about cries for help. So I think this kind of ties in really nicely with that. So my sister and I were talking about things we've seen posted on social media. Let me see if I can find this one. If it's where people say, oh, check on your strong friends and things like that. And one of the ones I saw today, it's in that similar vein. It says, no one notices when the strong one is tired of being strong. I wasn't myself for months and nobody noticed. And so we were wondering, like, are these posts, are they general information or are they sometimes cries for help? How do we know? How do we check in with each other? So we talked about checking in with yourself. How do we check in with each other, especially when we have tools like social media? We kind of get a glimpse into what people are going through.
I think you first have to have a relationship with that person, because you don't know. Because I think it's really about observing a person. Because again, we'll say we're fine. So how do we really know? So we have to have a relationship with someone to say, you know what, sister, I noticed that you weren't, cooking this week. I noticed that maybe a month you've been eating out. What's going on? You okay? I noticed that, you've been, shopping a lot. You all right? I noticed that your relationship is kind of shaky. But see, you have to be, because you don't want to bring up anything. And, that person kind of, acts out at you. You have to have a close relationship. So I just observe people, and any changes in their behavior, I will ask, and hopefully they will be honest. So that just goes back to being honest with ourselves so we can be honest with others. If we're not honest with ourselves, how can we share anything that's going on? I just know with comedians, I've heard their stories where they use comedy to relieve their pain. So that's a great example. You would never know they're depressed. Mm-hmm. Michael K, he talked about, I think extensively on the Breakfast Club, about his battle with, drugs and, how he used his art and his dancing as a way to get through, his drug addiction and depression. But you have to have a relationship with someone if you know the changes. So if you want to talk about drastic things to make sure everyone's okay, say you have a family member and they are wanting to give away things. They're just like, oh, I'm going to clean this house and I'm going to give away a lot of things. That's a sign. They're talking about death, maybe they're kind of peeking at the subject and you're like, well, what's up with this? You know what I mean? You want to really ask about that. If they're just out of character, they're doing things that they ordinarily wouldn't do, you definitely want to ask, and just keep observing them, and, don't make it a big deal, because they will not give you the information. But usually when someone is close to suicide, the number one thing is just isolation, giving away things, not wanting to really be in this thing called life, not performing well at work. If you see people getting ridden up a lot or change of behavior at work, that's another clue.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Sister, I'm going to toss it to you.
So I was looking at something earlier today, a video on Instagram, and it was for lack of better words, you know, we would call them a Karen, right? Because Karen has been associated with folks doing stuff that's interesting. And so basically, I guess this woman had gone up to this. She was driving her car. She saw this sign in Denver. It said something like "Science, love science" or something like that. And she pulled it out of the people's yard and ripped it up. Went in, and like they captured her on the Ring doorbell because she's ripping it up and she's throwing it at the door, and she's so aggressive. Similar, we saw the gentleman when Shaquille Brewster was on the beach reporting out in Mississippi. The guy drives up on the beach and he runs over and he wants to talk about don't lie, and all of this stuff. And so often we go to people make excuses for those behaviors in a lot of ways and says they like to label that, oh, they're crazy, or that's mental illness or what have you. And, you know, I've seen people say in the comments, stop putting that on mental illness, because there are people who are actually suffering with mental illness. So I guess my question is, how do we know if there is somebody who's having a break, a mental health break or a psychotic break, versus somebody who's just a nasty individual, a nasty human being?
Yeah, in that situation, in both those situations, I don't have a clue, because it's a little bit out of sorts for me. I would say that was very bananas. No one is going to just run up, because that's just unusual behavior, right? You're not going to, the news reporter, you're not going to park your car. They move and then you move and run after him. Okay, right. That's not usual behavior. But since I cannot say that, since I'm a clinician, I cannot say that, you know, he has mental illness. I don't know. But for someone that we do know, if they're having a psychotic break, you would know. You would definitely know. It happens rapidly. It can be very, very situation. They could come at you, knife, gun, right? We're talking about pure psychotic breaks, right? We're talking about schizophrenia. Their language, their voice often changes. They sound like a totally different other person, right? Right. You're trying to talk to them and normalize everything. You can't do that. It's not going to work when someone's having a break. The only thing you can do, and this is the scary part, is call the police. But you got to make sure that they have someone on hand, a mental health professional on hand, because it can get out of hand. Mental health professional in place, because it can get out of hand very quickly. Very. So I'm sorry I couldn't answer that, because, you know, every individual, again.
No, that's actually helpful. I mean, it's interesting because also we had gone to San Francisco last weekend, and we were walking down the street, and there was I'm presuming him to be homeless, because somebody else we presumed to be homeless let us know that he had plenty of money, although he was sitting on the ground at the time, and he seemed to have all his belongings there, but he let us know he had plenty.
You know, you can have both, right? You know, you can have money and still have mental illness and be homeless.
Right, but I'm saying, yeah, he was checking us when we were offering, because one thing I don't like to do is throw away food and stuff like that. So I was trying to offer some food. He's like, nah, he got plenty of money. So, but anyway, not him. So the other guy. That too.
Okay.
Okay. There was another fella, though, he had his shirt on around his, you know how back in the day guys used to, when they played basketball or something. And there was an Asian guy and a young woman walking. And I thought it's like he lunged like he was about to just go attack this Asian guy. So, of course, I'm in San Francisco. And I'm of the belief, you know, you can't just sit by idly and not say anything if you see these things happen. But then it was like he changed his mind, and I guess he saw us and decided, well, wait, I hate black people more. And then I thought he was coming towards me. So I just kind of threw Rob in front of him. I jumped behind Rob, kind of pushed him in the way, but he didn't end up coming. He ended up going on the corner and fighting with himself, I guess. He threw his stuff down and fought himself.
Well, he sounds like he was a little psychotic, yes.
Okay, I was like, really? But in that moment, I realized I was so scared, because I would never want to hurt or harm somebody who was in that place or in that moment. But at the same time, it was like, but I have to protect myself.
You gotta protect yourself.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, when is this abhorrent behavior? When is it abhorrent behavior versus like, no, this is something that's really a mental issue? And but I get it. You really don't know.
You don't
Unfortunately,
know,
until
you gotta
you're in
protect
that.
yourself. It doesn't matter. I mean, if you're on the street and someone, I've had a client in downtown LA. This guy was obviously, he had a psychotic break or something was going on. I don't know exactly because I didn't sit with him. Hit her in her face. He socked her in her face.
Yeah,
that happens a lot downtown. You have to protect yourself. It doesn't matter, if someone has hypertension, diabetes, kidney failure, right? Chronic CHF, congestive heart failure. You don't know any of that stuff, but if they come at you, what you gonna do? You go and hit them. It doesn't matter. If they're coming at you, you have to protect yourself, especially and I don't work with those clients in the hospital setting, but I've heard they're very strong for some reason.
right.
They're very strong, so you don't want them coming at you. Carry mace. I always tell ladies to have your mace ready. Some good old-fashioned mace or a stun gun.
Mm-hmm.
You got to protect yourself. It's scary times out here. People are really, like, what did my grandma say? They're outside their skin. You're like, what is going on? Just some irrational behaviors. They're angry. And again, that could be depression. It could be anxiety, but whatever it is being acted out in the community. So we have to be careful with that. How we, communicate. I don't blow at people. If they're moving slow, go ahead, sir. I'm good. I don't, rush anybody in the store. Go ahead, sir. You're good. Because I don't have time for that. I don't do whatever. But so we have to be mindful, I guess, more so mindful that if people are going through things and maybe, although we are too, but maybe they're not able to handle it and they're handling it inappropriately in the community. Does that make sense?
It does. It definitely does. Like I said, I mean, and then, gosh, this could go on a tangent, but just in so many of these communities with these gun laws the way they are, you don't want to mess with somebody, but you also don't want to put yourself in a situation where you're not protected. So
you don't want to be in a wild, wild west shootout. Like I really see, so you brought the laws up, and so Texas being Texas, so now anybody can open carry anywhere. They don't have to have they don't have to have any training or anything. And it's like, the way we're seeing people behave publicly, like, is that really the route we want to take? Because people are coming upon people because they choose to wear a mask. Like, wait a minute, it's just gotten so ridiculous.
It's ridiculous, and vice versa. If somebody doesn't have a mask, they want to. I'm like, you don't have to go near them. Just go. The argument is not going to help. It's really, and I get upset too. I'm like, why that? But I go about my business because I don't know what's going on with that person. I don't know their mind. I don't know their health, and I don't want to know. That's their business. And we just got to be careful. Seriously, it's getting out of control here. Like, people are just fighting about all kinds of things. I'm like, we got to live our life peacefully. We're going to get through this, but it's going to take time. Yes, everybody should wear a mask, but I cannot jump on you if you don't have a mask. All I can do is protect myself and stay the heck away from you.
Yeah. So I will say this. One of the things you said was that if someone's having a mental health break, you will know. I observed someone have a mental health break in college. Actually, more than one person. And you definitely know. I don't know what it is, what happens when people have mental health breaks. They get really hyper religious. I've observed that both.
That's one of them. Yeah.
Like, they're talking about like God has chosen them.
Yes.
And like, I'm about to go walk on this pool. Like, no, girl, you're not gonna walk on this water here. Yeah, but it's like, no, God told me to come back here and I have to save all of you. Wait a minute now. Wait, what we need saving for? Wait a minute, hold on. And I mean, it was rapid and instant, and I've seen that. I saw it happen to someone else, and it was like, okay, so you are okay, what time is it? And you out here stepping in front of the door? Like, what's happening here? Like, literally, um, yeah. So I've observed that happen a couple of times, and it is a very distinct different from just people being reckless and just having abhorrent behavior, and it's also different from my observations of people who I can really tell, like, oh, they have a persistent, as you said, some mental health issue, like maybe they are schizophrenic or they're having like a bipolar moment. It is very different, like when someone goes into that like total mental health
Face changes. Sometimes their face changes. It's like, what? Yeah. And I know this is not text, but it seems like it's like a spirit. It's scary. It's really scary to me. It's really scary to see that.
Yeah. So if you've seen it, you've seen it.
And it could be brought on by drugs as well. So just remember that people are out here using these different drugs. And you can have drug-induced psychosis. So be very careful when you're out here experimenting. A lot of people are doing mushrooms, psychedelics, whatever they want to call it. That's the new thing now. You got to be very careful.
The old new thing, right?
Yeah. You're bringing up my age.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, I can say it too. It's the old.
Yeah, they're bringing it back. Yeah, they're bringing it back. And they're microdosing, and I can do this much this day. And I'm like, oh, one day you're going to do too much, and it'll put you somewhere you don't want to be. So be very mindful that, the kids in school, just, equipping them that drugs, of course, say no to drugs, but just remember, if you see these slight differences in your friend, you need to step back and leave them alone and let somebody know what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Well, then the last bucket of topics we wanted to talk about was just mourning and grief. Because this past yesterday, so yesterday was the remembrance, the 20th 20 years since the September 11th attacks on at the World Trade Center. We have people in our hometown and in the surrounding areas who are struggling through this Hurricane Ida. There's still many places without power. There's people who's, really total loss of their home. And, there are all types of losses. Are there people who loved ones have passed away? We know, you said, the mental health professionals, as well as our healthcare friends. All of my friends who work in healthcare have all said they are on they are Grandmaster Flash, don't push me because I am close. Like they are on the precipice. And so the mourning has become just exacerbated. The grief has just become so heavy. Like normally we found ways to come out of our grief, but it's just been so heavy. What are some strategies to kind of get through mourning and grief other than riding a wave? Because we know that you got to ride those waves.
You got to ride the wave, and you got to know that it's a true emotion and it's very personal for everyone. Ways that some clients have helped and some things that have helped me is just being in stillness. And it's a strange thing to say, but just taking 5 to 10 minutes and just sitting without noise, without our cell phone, without anything. Now, this is not so much meditation, but just being in stillness, stopping everything, slowing down our body, listening to our breathing, and just knowing that we are present, we are alive, but yes, we are still grieving. That's one of the best tools that I have experienced in my life and other clients. Also, journaling about our emotions, how we feel. I always like to write down, I always give definitions to my emotions. I don't know why, because I always like to look at the different definitions. So I was looking up healing, what healing means for some people, just, what grief means for some people, what pain, hurt means for some people, and just writing down and just sharing your feelings about that, sharing your tears, how you felt about that person. If you weren't able to have closure with that person, it always helps to write a love letter to that person, a love letter saying how much you cared and appreciated them, and you wish you were there during that time. It also helps to exercise if that's something that you enjoyed before. If you want to start now, just taking a simple walk and being mindful. So being mindful is just turning off your cell phone again and just looking at the trees, looking at the sky, knowing that we're present, we're still here. Our loved one may be gone, but like Demetra said earlier, the energy is still there. Taking a walk, this is several months ago. My aunt passed like several years ago, but I was walking months ago and the trees, the leaves were just falling and just reminded me of her. It was like she was there and just enjoying that and just being a part of that. Oh my God, that helped my soul so much. But I wouldn't have caught that if I was just walking with my music on and just going about my day. So try to turn off that music for a while and take a walk. Talking to your friends about your grief, someone that's open to it. Not everyone is open. Some people are like, oh, you'll be okay. Or they'll say the wrong thing. Well, they were 80. They lived a long life. Oh, they're in a better place. Nobody want to hear that. I don't want to hear that when my relatives die. I want to hear that you say, you know what? I got you, sis. I got you. I understand your feelings. I may not be where you're at, but I understand you. Anything you need from me, just ask. Or I'll do something for you. I'll get dinner for you, whatever you need. I got that. So sharing your emotions with someone that really cares and understands you, taking time off work. You know, some people grieve, and it could be grief when you talk about the things that are happening in Louisiana, that loss, you know, your home. You're losing your home. You know, that's something that's going to take a while. So just sitting back and thinking about all those memories, it's going to shed a lot of tears. Just finding ways like, oh, well, at least I grabbed this from the house, or at least I got this, or this is the way we're going to recreate things, because this is the way my home was before. This is how I want to see it next time when I have a new house. That's a lot of grief, you know, making yourself a good meal, going out to eat, you know, eating well, you know, doing some adventures. If you're able to or capable to go out of town for a day, you know, try to find, I know Christina's good with this, maybe some travel buddies or you're good with traveling. Maybe there's some traveling programs where you can go and hook up with someone and pay half, but get away for a little bit, you know, find some new adventures, because there's so much life for us to live. Sometimes we get caught up in the grief, we get overwhelmed, we get so tired. Like we talked about earlier, we need to step away. So step away from that grief and know that you will be okay. You will prevail, but you have to give your body enough time to relieve the stuff and restore. Just like we do our cell phones. We charge our cell phones all the time, right? I don't even turn my cell phone off. And I think we do the same for our bodies. We don't turn our bodies off. It's moving. We just got to keep moving, but we got to stop. Be in that stillness. Just take a minute to take a couple of deep breaths in and feel how that feels. That good old oxygen coming in and out. Just recognizing that we still have life to live. I think that's important. Any other tools that you've done, maybe that I missed, that's helping you?
Well, first I want to just say shout out to Cam, one of our super fans. He's watching in tonight. So hey, Cam. We have Jackie said, thanks for speaking on depression. Mental health is so important. It absolutely is. And we have Robin here who says, I sit in my car about 10 minutes daily when I get home from work.
That's good. That's good. That's really good. Just to rewind. There's another thing I like too. It's called the Shine app, SHINE. And it's an exceptional app. I use it in my sessions. You can just go on, I think some of it is free. It may be like $10 a month, but it gives you excellent affirmation. It also has some meditation, a component of meditation where you can just sit for 10 or 15 minutes just to get your day going. I like to start my day with that. And that helps with any type of grief and loss, uncertainty, anything that we're feeling.
So I wanted to ask, so, you know, I think you worded it well, but now I can't remember exactly how you said it in terms of what we should be saying. So one of the things for me is I've seen a lot of stuff coming up on social media where people have posted about either they've lost a loved one, or they're dealing with a physical ailment of some sort, like a terminal illness or something like that. And I really have tried to be very intentional about the words, because the praying hands are getting a little old for me. especially on social media, I try to be very mindful of just saying sorry for your loss, because it's like I didn't lose my wallet, I didn't lose a cell phone, like someone has transitioned. So I try to be more mindful. Can you give us some tips of things that we should be saying or doing, or should we take it off of social media and just message that person privately? Also, like things like that.
You just said it. Contact them personally and ask them what would they like for you to do. They may not be able to give you any definitive things right now, but just hearing your voice may be helpful to them. Or just send them a package with a little brief note. But I think social media is taking over our communication as it relates to old school, when we were able to just pick up our phone with the long cords and say, hey, Jimmy, how you doing? Because I'm on Facebook just because of business reasons, but I'm like, I can't even look at all the posts that they have about stuff. I don't tune into that. I can't. And I'll just say another thing, and it may seem a little harsh. I get my 5 minutes of news from Alexa, and that's it. I can't take everything because it overwhelms me. I have clients, I have my life, I have, stuff going on. Don't try to take everything. We can't consume everything. We can't help everybody. I know it's harsh, but it will overwhelm you, and it will affect you physically. If you're trying to give, we can't do it. It would be great. It would be great if we had it, but we have to keep space for ourselves. So I try to limit some of those things that are going on socially. But you just said it, picking up the phone would be great, and calling and connecting with them is the most important thing, and asking them what they want, not getting it from someone else.
And I think sometimes even because I have my little running list of people. Like I had a little group that I sent stuff to, and I got another little group, a list of people who I was going to send something to. Did like kind of custom curated little gifts sent to them, because we know that it does not end just because that moment has passed, right? So whether that funeral has passed, or that it's been a year, 2 years, it could be 20 years. But for me, if it hits you if it hits you in your spirit that you need to send something to that person, then send it.
Yes.
Because it will be received in the way that it was intended to be received. So I think that's something very important. But for me, sometimes on social media, all I can do is to pray in hands, because I don't have any more words, because it has been so much loss. I don't have any more words, and words are so very hollow. So I do my best to reach out to people one-on-one.
And sister, in that case, even when I don't have words, I actually say that now, because before I wouldn't. I actually I know that there is nothing that I could say that's going to help in this situation. So I pray God mend your heart, because when people say they are brokenhearted, I really do believe that, especially with our Black men who have been, I've known in the last few years so many brothers young brothers have died of heart attacks. And I really do believe it is us. We are literally brokenhearted, and we're walking around here trying to act like all is okay,
saying that we're fine,
right? And so I try to, in that moment, so when people ask for prayer, I try to pray in that moment. I try to, even if I'm writing it, I try to do it in that moment. I try to say there are no words that I'm going to say that's going to probably help this situation, but I pray God mends your broken heart. Or I pray,
That's perfect, Christina. And also, I always pray for peace, because whenever I dealt with grief, it's hard. You feel like you're out of sorts. You can't sleep, you can't eat. So I always pray for peace for them, where they can get to a point where they're, able to talk about their loved one. Of course, there'll be tears, but it'll be more fondness than, oh, they're gone. There's always going to be those moments, but we want to get to a place where we're really celebrating them. So another thing I would add, if you have a friend or family member that has lost someone or something, ask them, when are they ready to talk about it? If it's a person, tell me, you guys have been married 50 years. Tell me about your what did you guys do 25th anniversary or whatever. That kind of renews them for some reason. You see that smile on their face, ask them to show you show you pictures. What was your favorite music? That kind of stuff lifts their spirit when they're ready. Yeah.
We have a comment here that says, you get your news from Alexia. I call my dad. At most, it helps to listen. This is how I have been supporting my best friend who recently lost her husband.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah. One of the things you had asked, well, what I do, right? So you had talked about kind of when you're therapist and you graduate people out of therapists, then they might transition to a coach, right? Because the therapy and coaching is two different things. So, you might need a life coach to transition to after you've gotten the skills and the competencies to kind of manage through. Then you can have a coach, because as a coach, coaching is forward focused. And it's like, okay, so let's talk about moving forward, right? And so then you might be ready to transition to that. So I wanted to say that. The other thing you mentioned, the phone, I had a situation where my car battery kind of did something crazy, and I was all frustrated and had me out of sorts for the day. But then I had my aha moment, my own aha moment. I give myself aha moments from time to time. Because one of the things the man said, he was like, your battery can still hold a charge, but it needed to be replaced. So here's the thing, we can't be replaced. So we need to make sure that we are recharging ourselves on a regular basis. And in terms of replacement, there are things we can disconnect from. Right? Because there are lots of things that's drawing our energy. Draining, depleting. Yes. And so starting to make some serious choices about where you disconnect from. Because everything can't be plugged into you. Everything cannot be plugged into you. So you got to decide what things I'm going to disconnect for me. And I think those are two things that helped me. And again, I had to have my own ha moment, because I have been on this emotional kind of exhaustion piece, because it's all mental. It's all the things that I'm going through and processing in my head. What about this? What about that? What about this? What about that? And I already have a high cortisol level, so I'm already on 10 all the time anyway. So Jackie says here, connect with them and let the person lead the conversation.
Come on, Jackie.
Just be available, a shoulder for them. And Jackie does this beautifully. She is that for so many people. So I'm going to acknowledge her and say that Jackie is that person who will send you a photograph that she took of you a long time a while ago, and just kind of bring that cheer and that joy back to you, and is that person who is just available for many. So love you, Jackie. So we've been going for our full hour now. We've had a lot to say tonight. You are tuned in live with Hey Sister. We've been joined by our fabulous sorority sister, soon to be doctor, but Angela Kirkwood Bōdy. She is a licensed clinical social worker. She is with the Hope and Wellness Partnership. So I'm going to toss it to you, Angie, and then to you, Christina. Anything you want to say to everybody in closing? We've covered a lot of ground tonight. What do you want to say to the folks in closing?
Yeah, we need to make this a two-parter number. I want to get that text number out to someone, and I'm looking here, and I'm sorry if I'm kind of looking like I'm not paying attention.
So I'm going to put one thing here in the chat, because you said definitely you wanted to make sure. So the suicide prevention lifeline, here is the website and the phone number, so that if you are someone who is struggling, if you're someone who just needs someone to reach out and talk to, you can start right here. We dropped in the comments. The Calm app is also a great place for helping you connect back with your breathing.
It is.
The Shine app to help you with those affirmations and checking in. We dropped in a couple of links, an article for you to take a look at, and then Psychology Today and Therapy for Black Girls. So if you're looking for a therapist, you're looking for a clinician. Angie told us they're all booked up right now. So you're going to have to be a little patient, but reach out, do your search at least get the interviews, and get started with the process. You know, it's been heavy out here. And that's why we really wanted to have this conversation. It's been really, really heavy of late. We've been seeing behavior that we've never seen before.
Yes.
And we've been feeling things we've never felt before. We lived through a time that we've never lived before. And so it's been tough. And so in my closing comment is just that we will get through this. We will get through this. We can get through this together. But most importantly, don't ignore the signs. Just do not ignore what you're observing. Because if you see something, like they say at the airport, if you see something, say something. If you see something in yourself and others, if you see something, say something. So that's my closing remark. What about you, Angie? What you want to say in closing?
I'm together now. I got it together. So I want to give out this number real quick. It's to the crisis text line. It's a 24-hour, 7 days a week support. You're going to text HOME to 741-741. That's HOME, HOME, to 741-741, 24 hours, 7 days a week. And that's if you're in a crisis or you just don't feel like today. We talked about a lot of emotions. You're feeling uneasy. You need someone to talk to. That's a good way to connect with someone. They're crisis counselors that have been trained. They're going to ask you, do you want to move forward? All you do is say yes, and you move on with the conversation. I'm here to tell you that guess what? Everything is going to be all right. I want you to really notice the things in life that are going well for you. It seems a little dim right now, but there's a lot of things in your life that are going well. You need to really you really need to capture on those moments and work with those moments and try to stay away from the negativity. We see a lot of negativity in the news. We see a lot of negativity in our life. Stay away from that and just work on the positives.
All right, Christina, what about you?
So again, I hate to be long-winded, but first, thank you so much, Angie, for coming back. This was very helpful for me. I found myself last week in one of those places where looking at social media just resulted in a meltdown because I just felt like I'm not doing enough in life. I need to be doing so much more. Now, the intellectual side of me is like, that most of this stuff is staged. It is not real. But the other part of me, the emotional part of me was just like, nope, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. And so, so thank you for this. The other thing that I would say is, in talking to you today, I've heard again, I just don't know how much I feel like we sometimes take for granted the importance of our nutrition, our actual nutrition. And so I heard you say yet again how even the nutrition piece impacts your mental health and your wellness, and not just from how you look physically, but how you actually feel, and getting those, like you said, blueberries, the antioxidants and things like that. So often I've only tied, not always, but so often I find myself tying my nutrition to goals of wanting to lose weight from a vanity perspective. And I've tied, oh, well, I'm going through something when I'm overeating and like eating too much. But it's like, it's just another reminder that I have to be really mindful of my nutrition. We all have to be very mindful of putting good stuff in our body because it impacts our whole physical well-being. And so thank you for that reminder.
Yeah, add in real quick. It's all about mind, body, and soul. And don't forget to connect with the spiritual side. If you have any belief system, that's very important during these hard times. A lot of people have stepped away, but if you believe in the divine, you need to connect to the divine and be there and pray for understanding. And we will definitely be all right. We have been through a lot, but we will be okay.
All right. Well, I wish I had Kendrick Lamar queued up right now because we gonna be all right. Hey. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in to Hey Sister. We will be all right, and we will see you on next Sunday. So Say bye, everybody.
Bye, sisters.
Bye.
Thank you.